Nearly 67 years into basking in the glory of Black Africa's trailblazer, Ghana has not moved on from the politics of now or the appropriate time. As nations strive to take advantage of the endless possibilities of the World Wide Web to increase the well-being of their people, we've reduced our vision and our priorities to endless and useless bickering about who has been more abusive of the powers given to them in our name and on our behalf. Ghana must move on from the stupefying, irritating, and non-productive daily diet of cynical and self-seeking politicians and place its faith in a new, purposeful leadership equipped to transition us into a competitive nation-state fit for the 21st century. Good evening and welcome to the last edition of Tarzan'S Take. The world is on the verge of the 14th year of the 21st century. Ghana has its first made-in-Ghana president. Participatory democracy has become the gold standard for global governance, but politicians are no longer the currency of choice for the citizens of the global village. And yet Ghanaians see politics and politicians as our only hope for years to come. Power, wealth, and influence are no longer anchored on the traditional pillars of military might and ownership of natural resources and industrial production. The New World Order is driven by binary knowledge, technological innovation, and the application to adapt local content to produce globally sought-after goods and services. The Ghanaian leadership class has become gargantuan consumers of global innovation while still preaching the virtues of stultified traditions and the adoption of rudimentary state and manual labor as a salvation for the majority of the poorest of our people. The agenda and the leadership that won us our freedom from our colonial masters was the right one for the right time. However, both are well past their sell-by dates today, as we pride and bask in the voluntary return to beg at the table of our colonial masters. Ghana must adapt now to the visions and leadership of the 21st century world, or continue its reversal into the deepest abysses of decay and suffocate and die in the cesspool of our own oil world. Future now, the leadership transition for Ghana is the subject of our last conversation for Tarzan'S Take, and the beginning of the search for ideas and the leaders that will fast-track us to become an equal member of the global village. Join me and my guest after this break to start a conversation as to how we transition Ghana into a new and relevant leadership for the 21st century. Welcome back. My guests tonight are two prime examples of the young generation of Ghanaians who are making significant and beneficial contributions to our country outside of politics. My first guest is Estelle Akofio-Sowa, country manager for Google, the global giant and leader for ICT innovation. But before that, most of you, when you think of busy internet Ghana, have heard of it, but you've not heard of the person that made it all possible. That's Estelle. Welcome, Estelle.
Thank you very much. Good to be here.
Thank you. Sorry I'm making you late. Oh. My second guest is Franklin Cudjoe, the founding president and CEO of the Immani think tank for policy and education. Rated amongst the top think tanks in Africa, he himself is rated among the emerging global young leaders. And of course, in Ghana, we know about Immani a lot, because Immani tries to think about what is good for Ghana, and that often gets them into a lot of trouble. Welcome, Franklin.
Pleasure to be here.
Good. Now, we've spent almost 30 episodes under a certain assumption. And the assumption has been that we have elected people to look after our lives and look after our people's lives. And therefore, if we essentially do a scorecard on them, we will begin to see whether they can do it well. But I think it's becoming increasingly clear that there's a disconnect between those we have elected and the ideas that we need to move this country forward. And that's why I want to have this conversation with you, because I also think that this country has not moved beyond the quarrels that won us independence, and the politics is still founded in that. I went away for a long time and I've been back. What impresses me most is that there's a new generation of Ghanaians that want to see this country move forward, and you represent two of the very prime examples. But before we go on, I want us to get some background. Let's start with you, Esther. You know, everybody knows about that great innovation that you brought. What was behind it? Busy Internet.
Behind Busy, yeah. Well, I don't, as you and I were discussing earlier, I don't know that I can claim to have brought the innovation. Mark Davies is the founder of Busy. I was blessed to have the opportunity to really take Busy from very early stages to the brand name, the household name that it became during my time there. And I think it was really just that it met the needs of the people, the customers that it was serving. It brought a new level of connectivity, access to the internet, a new level of customer service. And as I said, really just serving the needs of the people that were coming there.
I like your modesty, but so many people have tried ideas, and I think those who make it work are more important. How did you and Frank decide on what the needs were, and how did you in particular set out to make it work? I think it's important for us to know that.
Yeah. Well, I think it's very important when you're serving people to be in touch with them, to listen to their needs, you know, to observe their behavior and how they use your environment, and adapt to that. But I think one of the things that was, or two things that I learned that were critical at Busy were, we had a very much of an open door policy, and I think that ties in with what I said of, you know, listening, being in touch with the users. And I think probably as a managing director, I was probably one of the most available managing directors. You might learn as a manager that you need to be less available to actually get all your work done. But I'm very much a people person. That's what makes me happy, is being surrounded by people, being able to serve them, see them, you know, achieve their life goals. So that very open door policy, I think, was critical at Busy and helped us be in touch with our clients.
And because before Busy came,
there
were all kinds of internet cafes. And I'm asking you this question because you found what made it work: quality, reliability. Because within a very short time, it was the place. I mean, how did you sort of figure out this issue of quality and reliability and providing service? Because providing service is something that's a very difficult thing here.
Well, first of all, it was a significant investment was made. So it wasn't your average small cafe, which was sort of the norm at the time. But when we launched Busy, there were 100 flat screen PCs with a huge satellite dish. Now, you know, the Rolls Royce of internet is fiber. But at that time, having that big satellite dish was, you know, the wow thing. And bringing all those services into one space, offering a 7-day a week, 24-hour. That's, you know, when we first opened, that's what we were doing at Busy Internet. And that was just a new level of service, and really investing in the team that ran Busy. And, you know, they're still very much my family, even though I'm not there. And I think that's one of the challenges in Ghana as well, is that you often find that the owner of the business isn't really in touch with the team that are actually running it. And how can they understand what the mission and vision, what the brand is? And that was the second thing that I was going to say that I really learned at Busy, was about a brand and how you need to represent your brand in the way you live and breathe every day. I think that's something that some companies in Ghana don't do so well. It's just really making sure that everyone understands that they represent the brand and that they feel proud of it. And that was something that everyone at Busy and still today just felt really proud to be part of what was a movement. And it was just a wonderful time. I think the timing was just perfect as well. And we got to be part of all the discussions around the ICT policy. We were just the destination. And I think the combination of Mark taking that risk with a young lady, so having a young lady with short hair, running an IT business in a predominantly male world, just really was an attractive combination. And so we really did well. And it was a wonderful time in my life.
Frankly, I'm going to bring you in here, picking up two of the ideas Estelle has talked about, because she talked about being in touch with the customers. And she talked also about knowing your brand. A large part of your work, and one other thing she talked about was making sure the thing could be afforded, for example, the price. I mean, when Busy started, people thought, oh, who was going to go and pay at that time a relatively high price? Your work tries to, in a sense, deal with governance and what you think those we have given our mandate to should be doing in terms of the issues. And I mean, I've just read a very brilliant report that you've just done on education and other things that you are doing. I can see the risk of the kind of interventions you are making. But tell us what is driving the Immani vision and why you think that what you do is important and critical to our lives.
Well, thank you very much. I think the most important word here is faith. By the way, Immani is a Swahili word for faith. Yeah. As you know, 70% of Swahili emanates from Arabic. So the origin of Immani is actually Imam, a faith leader. So there's a lot of faith at Immani. But I've got to say that one of the major driving forces behind what Immani does is that critical need, in fact, to yield to customer demands. In this case, trying to borrow from what Estelle has said. When we started Immani, when I started Immani, I looked at the landscape and then I asked myself, what could we offer differently from the established ones? Don't forget, I worked at the Institute of Economic Affairs as well.
A lot of think tanks.
Yes, of course they were. Then I realized that think tanks are supposed to be second-hand dealers in ideas, essentially expert opinions. They are middlemen between expert work and then the lay persons. So that is why in the West you see opinion pieces written. If you read one opinion piece, it tells you a lot about, let's say, trade policy, for instance. So I realized that one of the things the think tank community was not doing effectively well was to disseminate in a manner that could be consumed by our journalists as well as the lay public information that was critical. It was the relationship between the think tank and in this case, the ordinary person was lost. What happened at the time was we issued papers, we did programs, invited everybody who mattered, wrote reports, and then sent them to parliamentarians who wouldn't read. So I found out, how could this be that even think tank leaders were not even writing in the media, for instance? I found that quite strange. Given some of the background I'd had in the UK and the US, where I'd authored articles of the Wall Street Journal and the Daily Telegraph, and actually made money out of it, and I saw the influence with further invitations to speak around the world, I said to myself, if all these people who were getting interested in these articles, which were communicating, let's say, trade policy, for instance, once had an American who read my Wall Street Journal article and actually sent me a $10,000 check. I met him 2 years later in Philadelphia, and I asked him, what motivated you? He said, you communicated trade policy in a manner that made me believe that if our government stepped away from interventions, we were going to have a free world. He was a businessman.
I want you, see, you talked about your audience and your community and Wall Street may understand you here.
Sure.
Don't you think in this place, part of your real mission must be, to inform the electorate so that they can get the governance system, in a sense, to see things differently from what they are doing, or to add to it?
Yes, that's essentially what I was driving at. I mean, we've imported that wholesale into the Ghanaian system. I mean, most of the time when you see an alert from Immani or a report from Immani, it is essentially trying to say that we are researching the economic trends for the benefits of the stakeholder community, businesses, government, and civil society. But more important, the governance role that we play is actually to subject any and every government policy to the critical test of value for money considerations, vested interest analysis, with the aim to publicize the results, which is what we've done. As you note, most of the subjects we've taken on, we call ourselves heavy lifters. You know, you are talking about the CDB loan. Which think tank is looking at the CDB loan? Who cares? But these are the modern trends. I mean, the prelude to this program, you were asking governments that have to be innovative to understand that if you are going for a loan from the Chinese, if you didn't show $1 million, they won't give you $1 billion. Now, these are the realms we operate now, because we've realized that to really perform that governance role critically, to tell people what is happening with, let's say, the CDB loan or the gas project or the XTS project, we went behind and then look at the contracting. We went behind to understand the mores of the institutions our governments were dealing with. So the point is...
Let me just get a clarification. Yes. I mean, so that our watchers and everybody gets the point. You see your priority essentially as, in effect, getting those who make governments more aware of what their governments need to do, in a sense, to meet their expectations.
Exceedingly the case, because, as you know, in competitive democracy like the ones we have, you know, the government employs a lot of people to praise him. In this case, I'm personifying government. So, if you're a civil society actor, and what you do is to heap praises, in fact, you have to offer rare praise. And we understand that the governance role we are playing is essentially one that says, look, the government does everything it needs to do to survive the next election. Yours is to be sure that whatever is delivering benefits you, because it's a contract. And that role is what we think we want to play, and play in a manner that reaches as many people as possible. So we use the innovations, Estelle and the rest, actually, the path they charted for us.
Fantastic.
The Facebook and the Google.
So you use social media a lot?
Exceedingly. I mean, the social media, I suspect, in this country, Facebook, our activities on Facebook, by myself, Bright, Kofi, and the rest, are much more a thorn than even the writings that we make.
They are not a thorn.
They are not a thorn.
They are empowering the people as to make an informed choice. That's a very good point to bring Estelle into what I consider to be our excessive ability to consume. You know, Facebook, Twitter, all that social media stuff is brilliant. But I've always had this passion that how do we make it relevant, contextualize it, make the content here? I know I was asking about your 7 or 8 languages in that. Yeah. But I have a worry about social media and our failure to, in a sense, use it more than we do. We are very good at getting all the Hollywood news, etc., etc. But how are you trying to use, clearly you are the biggest. How are you, the work you're doing here, trying to improve content delivery from here so that we can, in a sense, get synergistic value added from the exercise?
So social media, definitely a very powerful tool. And I also, just as Estelle and not as Google, you know, worry and think about, you know, how do you inspire young people or inspire people that are on the internet to go beyond finding a friend, you know, or just liking something or plus wanting something, to actually using the internet to make your business more efficient, more effective, you know, to make your learning, if you're a student, more, you know, broader. In every aspect of our lives, the internet and technology are such powerful tools. So it's something I think about as well. And I think if our education systems can really inspire people to realize that now you can come to the classroom with more information than the teacher. And in fact, the teacher's role is to facilitate all the information that the young people can bring together. So I don't have an answer to that immediately, but it's definitely something that I try and inspire everyone that I engage with, to not just be there liking someone's Facebook or plus oneing or whatever, but actually, you know, use the internet fully. And to your point around relevance, it's really important that we tell Ghana's story ourselves as Ghanaians, and you know, platforms like YouTube as well, like Facebook too, are such powerful platforms for us to really get our story out there. But I think we're not doing that enough. But I
first heard of your company's name. I was looking for some information. And somebody said, "Why don't you Google it?" I said, "What are you talking about?" You know, the company had become a word.
Yes.
And I think
it's actually in the dictionary now.
That's right. You know, so I did Google it.
Right.
Found fantastic stuff. You know, before it became too commercial, you could actually go to Google and pick out the best essay or best answer to anything in the world. But the thing that really surprised me was that I could get all the best stuff in the West, but I didn't know what references were in the University of Ghana, Cape Coast, etc., etc. That's what I meant about indigenizing our content.
And I think that comes to Franklin's point as well, is, you know, like the IEA, for example, or even government or University of Ghana, all the educational institutions. There's so much data, but it's not available in a way that people can access it, can analyze it. You know, just uploading a PDF. Maybe you're looking for one line that's relevant. You know, you don't need to download the whole thing. So really making this information available in a way that people can search for it, can analyze it, you know, and then create their own thinking around it, is one of the challenges that we face. So much has happened on the technology space in Ghana. We've got 5 fiber cables landed on the coast. We've got, I don't think our ancestors in Teshi ever knew that there would be that much connectivity right on the shores there, but it still isn't reaching the end user. It isn't in our homes and our offices in the way that we need it to be. And it's definitely not in government. You go into government buildings and it feels like there isn't even a dial-up there yet, you know, and young people are on their phones.
And we've got an e-Ghana project costing millions of dollars.
Yeah, but we said we weren't going to talk politics today.
No, but it's not politics. The e-Ghana project is meant to increase
transparency. It's meant to be the whole government, you know. It's way behind.
When I say we're not talking, you see, we're not going to talk politics of NDC versus NPP. But the reason why I brought you people together is this. This country has to develop.
Yeah.
And the younger generation, who now form the majority, have to develop. And the issues that I want us to draw out is, how are we going to utilize the kind of... After all, your company now is the biggest and largest company in the world, yes?
It's big enough anyway.
Yes.
If it isn't.
And that's just 2 PhD students sitting in a garage and doing something. What I'm trying to do is, you know, should we be talking about manual labor and hoe and cutlass and still wanting to be an economy that is competitive in the global world? When the obvious things are that, no, that's not the way forward. But is it a conscious effort that you use these tools because you are dealing with a certain class of Ghanaians who obviously are the majority?
Well, you see, I'm someone who detests central planning to the extent that I believe that information is infinitesimal and hierarchical, and it's dispersed. So the point is that if you really want to know what everybody really wants to do, believes, wants to achieve, it has to be from the bottom up. Now, so if you have a tool which can reach as many people as possible, why not? You have to use it.
Because I see you are one of the few think tanks that actually publishes its reports on the net.
Exactly.
Is that a conscious
decision? It is conscious. I mean, I've got some of the amazing guys I work with. Esther knows Bright Simmons, Kofi Bentel. These guys are out tech geeks, and you know them as well, Salam. And so it is what I call think tank by design. So we can extrapolate. And the question you ask about whether governments can also be that innovative and creative. I mean, you're having an intelligent discussion about the need to use ICT, for instance. So an intelligent designed government would be the one that wants to prosecute ICT in education, for instance, not to give laptops without educational content to kids. You know, it's one of the things we talk about, policy logicality. No, it's not.
Actually, that's not politics.
It's not politics, not at all. I mean, it's
real life.
It's not
Tarzan'S joke.
No, well, seriously, it does not do. It has to do. You know, look through our major policies that you want us to dream into the future. Every bit of it. But you ask a question, and see, I'm trying to give you many examples.
I deliberately make that interjection because what you are doing will necessarily affect the governance process. So you are of it, but outside of it, if you see what I'm saying.
Well, it has to be, because you see, I mean, it's a transaction, isn't it? So we demand all sorts of things. Now, in the West, for instance, they are talking about a McKinsey report published 2013, December. It's talking about government by design. And if you look at the prelude to the discussion, essentially saying governments are losing trust. Now, they are running deficits, budgets, and all of that. People are not trusting them. How could they be innovative? And some of the discussions we are having here, how to use technology
to empower those who select
people.
Government.
So, for instance, even if education, look, the other day, the Minister of Education was on, you and her were on the program, talking about the lack of teachers, the teachers are not motivated enough, they're not coming, and all those stuff. And I sat back and said, we don't have enough science teachers. We don't have enough math teachers. But they are the best teachers we can find in the 10 top public schools in this country. Can we have a project, possibly with Google, and say that, look, let's have all these teachers teach a course in a manner that every student in Nyankbala, everywhere, can understand without any instructor or an instructor who doesn't even understand. All the instructor needs to do is to get the CD, put it in the TV, or some computer, play it for these kids to understand. It's a way of delivering, how do you call it, some educational goods without necessarily having to think through how many teachers you need to employ, how much you have to pay them.
The issue you are raising is that we are stuck in the vision of the past.
Exceedingly.
I mean, you're not integrating our...
Not at all. Everything.
How can you help us here? I know you've got a few projects. For example, a project that will stop people directing people to my house by the Kelowele seller on the corner. You know, you have the Google street map, which is brilliant, by the way. But of course, it is lacking the street names.
Right, because a lot of the streets haven't been addressed. But just to maybe to get to the point that when I'm with young people in Ghana, Ghanaians, you know, I think that our future is bright. And when it comes to technology, they are so, you know, they're born. It's part of their lives. And I think if we really let them take their rightful place, and that's been one of the things that's been holding us back, is that we've just not been allowing our governance to sort of graduate. Let the next generation come in and do their thing.
By the way, that's the topic for this program we're having.
Or even listen to them. I wonder when a minister last really sat down with young people and listened to them and listen to the contribution. Sometimes when I hear a consultant from somewhere has been brought in to deliver on a project, and it generally doesn't ever, it ends up being a document. They leave, they don't implement. We don't have the skills set or maybe the tools. why there's so many young people that can deliver, especially on the IT front, deliver these tools. Many of them, I'm sure, would even do it for free as national service, because that is something also that we're seeing really growing, is this sense of national pride and commitment that young people have.
Do you think there's a kind of disconnect, and this is a question to both of you, between, in effect, the age of our governance and the enthusiasm of the young people with new ideas?
I think there's a
disconnect.
And what can we do about it? Because for me, that is essentially how we're going to, in effect, catch up.
Yeah.
You know, how do we convince those we've given the powers to start thinking like the innovative young people that are clearly being produced?
Well, if I could, I think one of the things that maybe we're challenged with in Ghana with our democracy is that, you know, democracy requires everyone to participate. And I think that we're not yet, as the citizens of Ghana, we haven't yet matured enough to recognize our roles as citizens. You know, and that goes right down to demanding that government delivers what they committed to deliver on. It comes down to stopping urinating on the street so that the roads can be healthy and clean, the air that we breathe, you know, to even traffic wardens and so on. You'll see a trotro driving around just with smoke bellowing out of it, polluting the air. So I think, you know, people need to become more responsible and actually participate in our democracy, and that will help break some of that, the gap that we're talking about. So it's one of the things that we need to mature on, and I don't, again, know the answer, but I think people definitely need to take responsibility.
That is really what you are doing. You are trying to arm and better educate
exactly
the citizens of Ghana so that they can better engage.
Yeah, because one of the things we should avoid, actually, to eschew politicization of life. Unfortunately, that's a lot these days.
You see, I disagree with you about politicization.
No, when I say politicization of life, what I mean is that, so a young man gets out of the university, looks around, looks at an MP, looks at someone he knew probably 3, 4, 5 years, says, I think I can do this. I've got to join these people. Without any there's no clarity in his or her mind what exactly he or she is bringing to the table, or what he or she will be getting from joining the political train. So the point is, we've politicized life to the extent that when you hear the youth,
it's the only way out of poverty.
Well, but that's the point. I mean, it has to be entrepreneurial. You see, the politician must be, unfortunately, they are political entrepreneurs interested in harnessing votes, but not
people have to buy their way into politics.
Well, buying your way means that you are buying people who you have empowered to be able to make intelligent decisions. That's the way I see it. I mean,
you bribe them to vote for you.
Well, when you bribe them to vote for you, essentially you are not creating the next critical mass of thinkers.
No, I know about that, but what I want to know is, how is Immani's work? You know, because I see your work. One of the things I'll be asking you is, unfortunately, a lot of the people on the net are exiled Ghanaians. So how are you really influencing the young people and because you get into a lot of flack with the politicians because of what you're saying. Maybe people are thinking that you are exposing them too much. But apart from the internet, how you connecting with your young people? Because I see your work as very, very important. I'm learning a lot from you.
Well,
and I'm a
humbled.
Person, you see.
I'm humbled. I think there was one thing we realized. We used to, and we still do, where we have seminars, usually. We used to organize seminars in this country with Association University, and we decided to export it abroad. So every year now, we choose a university in Africa, in an African country, where we have seminars to discuss modern thoughts, the economy, the global economy, politics, whatever that we think we need. But crucially, one of the things we also do is an interface between academia and the business world. I remember one of the sessions we had a Estelle coming to speak on one of our platforms. I think it was a TEDx event where we try to connect people who want to be part of the world, not necessarily part of the political train, who want to know about what is happening in the business world. So we try to do all of this stuff. But you see, the World Wide Web is the most important way of reaching millions of people. I mean, when I put something, for instance, on Facebook and I say share, what it means is that when you share it on your wall, a lot more people get to know. I remember just last Thursday, I'll give an example. There was a TV discussion with a deputy minister. When we left, in fact, on the program, he did say, go and see his wall. The lot of disaffection is causing for us. And I said, wow, this thing really bites. But of course, it is not disaffection. It's that dissemination of information.
How do you see, we have a real problem on our hands.
Yes.
And I want to see how we can use the kind of ideas people are generating. The politicization, for example. The people in politics now, if you see them on both sides of the political divide, they have grown from the tertiary and all of that into the current positions. How do we influence? And they all have very well organized groups. How do we influence the Tescos and the whatever they call themselves into the kind of work you are doing, or even universities in general, in terms of becoming more knowledge, or thinking globally?
Well, I think two answers. The first one is that we shouldn't expect that things will change anytime sooner. There are small messes, the things we are doing gradually. I mean, I'm not sure you are a Thatcherian. I probably don't think you like Margaret Thatcher that much.
I met her a lot.
Yeah, but that's fine.
I demonstrated against her.
Well, I can understand because I know your background. The interesting bit about her was that when she took that critical step of visiting think tanks, especially the Institute of Economic Affairs, the regional one in the UK, to learn how to run government from a standpoint of the market, it took her 30 years before she could cause that revolution, privatization around the world. Like it or not, she caused some change. So the point is that it wouldn't come that easy. If you get 1, 2, 3, 4 people on your side who consistently understand what you do, you've got to find a way of drawing them into the frame, into the picture. I mean, when you write something about the processes that the Food and Drugs Authority has to take to become a modern institution, and then you see that a member of parliament takes the matter up, then the chairman of the Public Health Committee writes to you, says, no, we saw this. We think you have to testify before the committee. That is the beginning of the change. The second one, let me add it quickly, and I think Estelle's work comes here again. I'm probably giving somebody some business idea. A lawyer called me, you know him that well, called me last week and was asking, how do we get all the good stuff, the theses that all the students have written, how do we get them onto the World Wide Web? There's no law journal. There's nothing. So a judge gives a ruling, and then we have to live by it. You know, in the States, you take the Cato Institute, Brookings, they are reviewing the Supreme Court rulings in the manner smart lawyers are reviewing. It breeds some sort of fear in the next judge, not to be timid and just rule within the law, but go beyond and make herself or himself available to the modern thinking.
But those are the things we should be doing. It's all about the lack of content, local content.
Yes.
But I know that you've started 1 or 2 initiatives, the street naming, for example. And I know you have started something with in the Ministry of Industry. Are you formally engaged in the e-governance project?
Not formally, no.
But are you being consulted?
Yes, yes.
And at the kind of, because I know the strength of Google is content, to the extent of filming, going down, watching people wash their backs and things like that. But what exactly is happening? Because I think that Franklin has raised an issue which is really the biggest problem we are facing in this country. How do we take that content that we have stuck in books and bring it up to using that kind of avenue that you have?
Yeah, it's really not that complicated.
No.
So it needs to be in digital format. And once it's in digital format, you can get it online. I mean, whether it is, if it's video content, then YouTube is a great platform. If it's text content, it can either be on your own website, it could be a blog. Getting the content out there
But how is the IT community actually forcing government or to? Because you know what?
You need the commitment to do it.
Money.
If there's the will,
no, it's not money.
No, there's a bit of money
when
as
I
well.
first came here and computers were all the rage, if you went into every minister's or every big person's office, there was a computer, the printer, the whole
resources,
thing, and they're not using
if we
it.
talk
because
about
you have
money,
to
it is
copyright
one issue.
issues.
Right, but something like, I think money, yes, resources is an issue, but I think people can do so much more. And you can take small steps.
Is it a copyright issue to get Lagos content online? I don't think so.
Oh, no, I'm just saying people you've got to pay people at some point.
It's public. But there's people employed and sitting there
Anyway,
not doing anything.
There's an e-governance project of several $1 million that the World Bank is financing right now.
I don't think money is the issue. I think it's the commitment. And that's why I raise the young, because a lot of people, everyone knows how to do everything. But there are, I've learned, that's one of the things I learned at Busy was as a manager, you don't need to be able to do everything, right? But you need to have a team around you that can do the bits that you're not strong at. So that's where I call on the young people again. If there is any challenge that government faces on the IT front about how to get content, if that's one of the challenges, just reach out to the developer community, young people in Ghana. Ask for a team to volunteer and give you the answers. They know how to do it for you. And we can take mini steps. Take a step. Just start something. Because sometimes I think we talk all about the Rolls Royce and then we just never move. And Ghana, you talked about, I think you used the word competitive, did you say competitive democracy?
Well, competitive democracy.
And I think Ghana is, especially on the IT front, not that I think, we are falling behind. Kenya, if anyone talks about IT, they head to Kenya. Nigeria, and they just need to get a few things right. Their size, they blow us out the water. Countries like Rwanda that are coming out of, terrible times, and we've been enjoying this democracy for so long. It's just a matter of time, and the world realizes that they're ready for them, and that Rwanda is not that scary country to go to, or that it had historically. But we're really falling behind, and considering the amount of connectivity we have on our coast, I'm very disappointed. I mean, often I go to bed thinking, so those 8 years that I hustled at Busy, I've already done 4 years at Google, all what the private sector has already been doing, and all, I take my hat off to all the ISPs that survive today. The operators, I know that we can throw a whole lot at them about quality of service and so on, but it's not easy to run an IT business in this environment with still the energy, the electricity issues that we face. So that so much is happening already in the private sector. I think it's very disappointing that Ghana is not further ahead on the IT front, and I think we have to hold government responsible for where we find ourselves today.
Now we're looking at transitions. Yes. How do we move, in the business that you are in? Clearly you are disappointed with the politicization. But the kind of work you're doing, how do we use it to empower and make our people more knowledgeable and more questioning and more demanding of those that they have voted for? Because I think that has to be, how do we take the, if you like, bright lights out of politicization and use the kind of work we are doing to make sure that Ghanaians, who ultimately are the ones who put the people in politics, are better equipped to demand more answers?
Well, I think it's a subject that we discuss in a very open, respectful manner. Over the course of the time, 3-4 years, I've seen that the community I engage with on Facebook, for instance, I've seen a lot of shifting in terms of thinking. People are shifting. But I think we need to look for opportunities, avenues to, as much as possible, widen those debates. And I think it's possible. But I also think we also need to be showing people, both the people we deal with as well as those in government, evidence of what works elsewhere, which doesn't require a lot of effort.
Okay.
So, for instance, Rwanda, my guys were in Rwanda, Bright and Salem, to do the Semper degree. They were told, they said, make sure it works in 60 days. We've been here since 2009.
And I think just recently, didn't we give out a contract to...
Well, we did.
Was it Japan or so? I mean...
We did.
And it's right here.
It takes 5 hours to start a business in Rwanda now.
How do we get those wonderful young people with all those IT skills? How do we get them recognized in this country and get what they are doing to influence and affect our future?
Yeah. Well, I guess, first of all, you can start at home, right? So the responsibility as either an older brother or sister or a parent, an auntie or uncle, inspiring young people to go beyond, to think beyond themselves and realize that they're part of a global community. And you can't just think about yourself in a selfish way. You have to recognize that you're part of this global world and that you're impacting people. And then in our education, I always use the example of when I had my first child and I was at SNIT hospital waiting for my first scan. Meant to be a wonderful moment for a mother and a husband, a father. And I was in a long queue, and I watched all the ladies coming out of the room with a sealed envelope, and off they went. So when it was my turn, Hollywood style, I lie down on the bed, roll my head over to see the screen, and the screen is turned away from me. So I say to the doctor, "Oh, can I see my baby?" And they were like, "Oh, yes, of course you can." So, and I thought to myself, so every other woman that has walked out of this room ahead of me, either, didn't know to ask, didn't have the confidence or the inspiration, whatever it is that I had, and just felt like it wasn't their right to see. And they've gone with that envelope, which they're now going to give to their doctor. They'll never see. And that little picture is meant to be for you, to keep and even show the baby. So it's knowing that you can ask. You have the right to ask. As a human being, these are basic rights. So our education system, I think, is very challenged as well. And teachers, my mom's a teacher, so I love teachers. I have a lot of respect for teachers. But I think for their mindset to change as well in Ghana is important. That, as I said earlier, that they're really facilitators. These kids are way smarter than all of us. And our role is to facilitate them to think. That's what learning is about. It's not about absorbing information and just being able to repeat it. But it's about being able to think about it and think, as Estelle, how do I want to now bring that information out? That it will have that Estelle brand to it. It will represent what, my morals and what I think is important in life. Okay. So that kind of thinking. And that's why we're here today. Exactly. You were asking, what can we do? That's why it's a Sunday. We've left our families at home and we've come. So again, you can do what you can do at home. Then you can also volunteer, as we're doing here today, to try and inspire people to make the world a better place. Fantastic. And to do what is right. And then we also needed to trickle upwards, because I think, you find people that come on the show every day. There's lots of Ghanaians that are doing mentoring to young people. We need more, but a lot of people are giving to society. And we just need to continue doing that, but in a bigger way. And that's what I was talking about, the citizens of Ghana sitting up and demanding what is right.
Thank you. Wonderful. So I think we're beginning a conversation. First of all, we need to be better informed about ourselves.
Yeah.
And we need to use the tools of the modern global world to spread the message. That is the essence of what I have gotten out of our discussion. And we need to also, in a sense, make sure that what we do gives greater authority and autonomy and power and control to those who give people to rule in their name. So we're hoping that Immani and Google, through you and your colleagues here, will ensure that we better inform our people and we transition into leadership that will actually do for this country's citizens what they are looking for, a well-being. Thank you very much for offering to be part of this discussion. We're going to end. I want to show you an excerpt of a paper that was delivered by somebody I know very well, who's of your generation, talking about education. And when they do, that will be the final session and the final view. We have spent 30 episodes looking at the problems of Ghana. And I think I've come to the view that those problems need to be solved. We shouldn't just be talking about those problems. We have 67 years of independence. The world has become a global village. Names like Bill Gates and what's your colleagues shape the thinking of the world. We are stuck in a rut. We believe that staying still and using rudimentary approaches is what is going to take us out of this. Ghana wants to be a modern nation. We are proud to claim to be a middle-income country. But we are not going to make ourselves a competitive nation in the modern global village unless we improve knowledge, we improve innovation, we put our faith in the young people who understand the world in its wider context, and not just people who think our daily lives should be wasted with listening to bickering about who is being most corrupt. Thank you for having been part of Tarzan's Take. This is the beginning of a new conversation, which is going to look at the solutions that will make Ghana a member of this community of global nations, competitive, strong, making our people better off, and eliminating poverty. That will be called the National Development Dialogue Series. And as you can see, I'm sure my guests will also be part of it. Thank you very much.
Pleasure to
Thank
be
you
here.
too.